Hey guys, we are going to do a grounding yin practice. Grounding meaning we're working from the ground up. So come to lie on your back. It's a very good place to begin. Extending the legs out in front of you. Oh wait, before we begin. I want you to make sure that you've got a few things. So I want you to make sure that you have some books. The reason I need you to take a little second here is because you have to have two little piles of books. If you don't have blocks, if you have blocks, then you're fine. Two little piles of books, and they need to be in equal height. So get that. Try and make sure you have a couple of blankets, one or two pillows, maybe an eye pillow if you have one. What I also like to do is just take my buff or my eye band and pull it over, my hairband at least, it's my eye band now, and then pull it down over your eyes. So just make sure you got all of those things. You can pause this to go get those things if you need to. Otherwise, let's begin. So we'll start lying on our backs, coming into Shavasana. Making sure that you perhaps have something underneath your head if your chin juts up towards the ceiling. Just giving the back of the neck some space. Come to full Shavasana. Extend the legs out in front of you. Just let your feet flop out to the side, palms facing up. And take a nice deep breath in. Exhale, side out. And just come to the breath. Noticing your inhale and noticing your exhale. Not necessarily changing anything in any way just yet. Maybe even resting the hands on the belly. So that you can feel yourself coming to your breath. Just noticing the belly rising towards the ceiling and falling as you exhale, drawing the belly button to the spine. Allow the weight of the shoulders to just sink into the mat. Allowing the whole body to become very, very heavy. So we're taking a grounding practice. So what I want you to do is feel the ground below your body. Noticing every point that touches the floor. The backs of the hands with the fingertips curling in gently towards the palms of the hands. And breathe. Noticing the thoughts that are fighting for your attention. And become conscious of the act of thinking. So thoughts only become proper things when you give them attention. Like all human beings. Sometimes we only become who we are when we receive attention, when we feel seen and heard and accepted. So doing that with your thoughts, seeing them, accepting them as they are, but not necessarily needing to engage in them. So actively setting that thought aside. Actively setting that thought aside. Actively setting that thought aside. And then actively shifting your awareness from your engagement in thinking thoughts and bringing your awareness back to your breath. Noticing the inhale, noticing the exhale. And then shifting your consciousness, your active participation in the breath to your hearing. And actively listening. Not just hearing, but actively choosing to listen. Bringing your awareness to how quiet it is. And if you have children or spouses or other people in your home, noticing the noises that they are making. And then noticing that those noises are in the distance and coming back to that active hearing, to just the bubble around you, just the space between you and your mat. The space between you, your mat, and your thoughts, and your active thoughts, and your breath. The space between your thoughts, your breath, and your active listening. Listening. And listening. beginning to invite movement into the body, bringing your consciousness from the mind, the breath, and the hearing into your physical body lying on the ground. Beginning to invite movement into the fingers and the toes, just taking a little wiggle. Inhaling the arms up above the head, and as you do that, stepping one foot at a time to the ground. It doesn't matter which one you start with. Extending the arms above your head, even if you're lying on a blanket or a pillow. If you have some kind of a prop there and it's bothering you, remove it. But if you're happy with your arms over your prop, walk your feet slightly closer to your buttocks, but still keeping the feet nice and wide, maybe even as wide as the mat. Keeping the arms extended above the head, begin to tuck the tailbone and gently rolling up. So you're in a slightly wider positioning than you would be for a bridge. At this point, you can definitely, if you haven't yet, remove the prop from below your head, giving the neck space to lengthen. Releasing the hands from above your head and bringing them down onto the ground, onto the mat. Perhaps you can walk your feet a little closer so that you can get your hands to grip the ankles and lift yourself up higher into a upward facing bow. If you cannot access the feet, then just rest the hands flat onto the floor and continue to lift the hips up towards the sky, towards the ceiling, and draw the chin a little deeper into the chest, stretching into the back of the neck. We're going to spend a little bit of time on the neck today. For many of us, our tension, our anxiety, and our stress land in the neck. Perhaps taking a little bit of organic movement here. If that means something to you, then use it. If you're not sure what that is, then just keeping the lift in the hips for one last breath. And then as you exhale, releasing the shoulders if you've managed to get all the way up onto them. And gently, with control, rolling down through the spine, upper back, middle back, lower back. Landing the lower back back down onto the ground, walk the feet even wider, taking the arms out to shoulder height, and then beginning to gently windshield wiper the knees from side to side. Doesn't matter which side you start on, just getting a little bit of movement into the hips as we start to warm up. And then you're going to land on one side. Again, it doesn't matter which side you start on. And if there is room for you, you're going to bring your ankle onto your knee. And breathe. And we're going to hold that for about a minute. I'm going to start keeping a little more accurate time from this point on so that we can not expect you to hold your yin poses for eternity. And last breath, removing the ankle from the knee, gently sliding yourself back up to center, and then on your next breath, releasing down to the other side and placing the other ankle on the knee. And breathe. Allowing the breath to lengthen and deepen, feeling the full breath. No matter which pose that we're in, we're always trying to maximize to the full breath. Yogic breath begins in the belly, middle lungs, upper lungs, and then we exhale from the upper lungs down into the belly. Draw the belly to the spine. And last breath. Inhale, exhale. On your next inhalation, bring the knees back up to center. Bring the knees into the chest, give them a squeeze, and coming into happy baby. Drawing the outer edges of the feet into the hands and drawing the knees into the armpits. Take a moment or two of movement to settle in. And then this is going to be our first longer hold. So we're coming to a 2-minute hold here. And try to find some softness in it, so remembering we're not yanging. If happy baby is particularly difficult for you and you may need to use some force to hold, or effort, not force, some effort to hold the feet in place, you can move the hands down onto the calves or onto the backs of the knees if it feels impossible to hold the hands onto the feet. Come back to the breath. And just noticing if the mind has wandered off. Where has that mind of yours trailed off to? And come back to the breath. We're a minute in, we've got another minute or so to go. And noticing again where the mind has gone and gently come back. And we're in for the last couple of breaths. Inhale, exhale. And inhale, exhale. Gently taking one foot down at a time. Grounding down. Taking a grounding practice. With your next breath, just rolling over onto your right hand side, supporting your head with your arm. And bringing the knees up into a little bit of a fetal position. Drawing the knees into the chest in whichever way feels good for you, and then just come to this moment. Just acknowledging this childlike sense of safety and security that we find in the fetal position. Just allowing a moment to connect with the sense of unconditional love. You are unconditionally loved. Whether you know it or not, or believe it or not, is almost irrelevant. Gently pushing yourself up using your top hand. And coming straight to a little diamond. Bring the soles of the feet together. You can take your feet quite far away from the body to give the hips and the knees a little bit of room. Slide the hands down onto the ankles or the knees or wherever you can reach. And inhale as you exhale, hinging at the hips, leading with the chin, the chest, the forehead. Folding down. And we're going to be in here also for 2 minutes. Taking the time to wriggle and jiggle and not necessarily taking yourself to the full capacity of the pose. It is yin and we're holding this for 2 minutes. So perhaps starting somewhere where you feel like you can manage and that's comfortable. And then allowing the time and the weight of the body to draw you deeper into the pose. Softening the chin in towards the chest and letting the head hang heavy. And we're halfway in. I suppose we're halfway out as well. Maybe you need to take a little sigh. Trusting the breath, always trusting the breath to take you safely into the next space. And for these last few moments, is there a final, deeper place that you can reach into as you sink down towards the ground for these last 2 or 3 breaths? And very, very gently, beginning to ease your way out, coming out very, very slowly. Reach the hands out behind you, flatten the feet down to the ground. lift the chest, squeeze the shoulder blades together. If it's comfortable in the cervical spine, then taking your gaze up towards the ceiling, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Inhale, exhale. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, taking your gaze towards the front of the room. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. And with your last breath, gently releasing into the elbows, take your feet out to your left-hand side, and we're coming straight into deer pose. So you're going to walk your feet out, continuing to walk your left foot out behind you. Your front foot, you want to make sure that the ankle is directly in line with the knee, and flex that foot for a moment. And then you want your back foot to be at exactly the same angle, just further back. So you're going to walk that leg a little further back. Now, I don't want your ankle to be on the hard ground. So you'll take your blanket, if your ankle is, your back or your front ankle is resting on the ground. My back ankle is, in fact, resting on the ground. So make sure that you've got a little support under that back ankle. Okay. And then if it feels like your hips are hideously out of alignment, then you'll take another blanket or a pillow, the lovely scatter cushion off of my couch, and perhaps you put that underneath the bum on the ground to help even the hips out. See that? And then if you come out of your alignment with your legs as you were doing that, come back in. Inhale, lengthen. This is a 3-minute hold, so we're building. We're working into the hips, we're working into the ground, we're working into forward folding. Forward folding is very calming. It's to help you cope with the trauma of opening your hips. And settling in, we're in for 3 minutes. If you've got a cold hard floor in front of you, like I have right now, again, you can maybe reach for a blanket or a pillow. Also remembering again that we don't necessarily want to go into the full force of the pose for the first minute. So maybe starting again on a blanket, sighing into it, softening the chin into the chest. What's quite nice about having a blanket or a pillow on a floor is that as you ease into the pose, you can just slide that blanket a little further forward. Take a good deep breath in and see if you can settle a little deeper into the pose. And breathe. Using as many sighs as you feel like you need to. The sighs will release tension from the body. Sighs get a bit of a bad rap. Everyone assumes that a sigh is because of discomfort or unhappiness, but a sigh is just a really good way to give your body a bit of a release. And when it comes to hip openers, you definitely could do with having a sigh. And we've only got 30 seconds left. Breathe. And last breath. Very, very gently walk the hands back. Coming to sit up tall. Taking your prop out from below you if you have one there. And you're going to keep this bottom leg exactly where it is. Bring the back leg around. Bring your left leg around. And stacking your knees. Your knees and your ankles. Stacking your knees and your ankles. If this is murderous and the sharp bone of your ankle is stabbing you in the soft flesh of your thigh, then again take maybe a blanket or a scarf, or you can even fold over the corner of your mat and pop it in there. And you want to make sure that the bottom leg is a little further forward so the ankle is directly below the knee, and you want to make sure that the top ankle is slightly further back so it's not directly on the knee. And then the higher up your knee is pointing towards your eyes, the tighter up your hip is. So if this is not accessible, by the way, if you're not able to get here, then you're keeping the bottom leg extended. So you've still got the ankle in exactly the same place, and the bottom leg is extended. So if you've already made your way in there, so some of you have probably been in this for a good 10 seconds already, that's all right. Make sure you get up to those sit bones. And then if this is murderous, if this knee is like up here, then you take what I call the thinker. You rest the elbow not on the knee but behind the knee, and just let the weight of the head and gravity, that old gal, do what they do. If this is relatively accessible for you, you are folding forward. Inhale, exhale. So fortunately for you, I have been timing it already. We've been in for nearly 40 seconds already, so soften something and breathe. If this is working well for you and you've got a little bit more room in you, you can work into a twist, walking yourself over to the right hand side and bringing the left elbow into the left sole of the foot. Press the hands to the floor. Take a little bit of a halfway lift. Inhale, exhale. Bound down into that twist, just dropping the chin into the chest. This is not where we all have to go. You may still be in the thinker, which is an absolutely wonderful place to be. Allow yourself to explore some philosophy. You think, therefore you are. And we've only got another minute to go. I like to check in with the neck here as well. Just sort of sliding the chin across the chest from shoulder to shoulder is just fine. And for these last 30 seconds or so, moving out of your twist and you're in it, if you are in it, and coming back to center, and then walking the hands over to the other side for a short little counter twist. Just resting the right hand on the left knee, taking your right hand a little further back behind you. And this is a very gentle twist. It's just a little counter twist, a little unwind. And last breath. Slide the chin across the chest, come back to center. Last moment or two here. Just rest the hands on the knees, draw the shoulders up, exhale, shrug them away. And last breath. Good job. Lean back. Take your top leg, your left leg, and just extend it out to the side. Draw your right leg a little further in. Come back up onto those sit bones if you need to. Flex that extended leg for just a moment, and then you're going to twist to face that leg and fold forward. Relax the ankle. Walk your hands forward. Now, if this leg feels like it's a bajillion miles away, one of the reasons why you have all these extra props, maybe you've got pillows from your bed even, that works really, really nicely. And we're in. This is a 4-minute hold and we're building. But don't you worry about the time. What does Dirk say that I love so much? Please don't mind the time. I love that. So if you're needing some extra props over this extended leg, one of the other names that I have for yin yoga is Lego yoga because of the amount of props you can use. See, now that's just lovely. Oh my gosh, this is super comfortable. Remember to try to drop your inside shoulder, your right shoulder in, so that your shoulders are squared over your extended leg. However, we're yinning, so don't get too caught up in the detail of alignment here. We're really more concerned with your connective tissues, your fascia, and your joints. Try to relax that right leg and fold. If you've been in for a little while with a prop or two and you feel you can take something away, go for it. And breathe. Letting the head be very heavy. Even if you're all the way up here, there is no problem with being here. The work is where the work is. Remembering in yoga, one of the things that we don't like to do is compare. Comparison is evil. So sticking with your body, this is the nice thing about a home practice. There's nobody else in the studio for you to compare yourself to. It's just you and your own practice. And me, of course. Noticing your desire to fidget, like I'm currently doing. And try to notice your desire to fidget. And just be aware of it. There's no need to try and change it or fix it or stop fidgeting. That will happen of its own accord when you just see the desire. Soften something and then be still. Is there a last deeper place that you can soften, not yank, not push, not pull, not force? Is there a last space in this moment that you can press a little deeper into? And a last breath. Inhale and exhale. Perhaps there is a gentle sigh as you very, very, very carefully walk yourself back. Whew. Take your right hand out behind you and sweep your left hand across your face. Point your right toes and slide up to the shin of your right leg. I think I just said right twice. So this one, the bended knee, is your right leg. Extend and reach over that arm. Squeeze the buttocks. If you're very bendy and very flexible and very strong, you can bend the back elbow very slightly. If you can't hold it up here for very long, then you just settle back down as soon as you need to. But if you are able to arc into the body and take this little bit of a full body yawn, then go for that for as long as you like. Before resting your buttocks, so you're going to take your right bum cheek and place it on the inside of your right shin and your right heel. So you'll see my left leg's gone a little bit at a funny angle. That's all right. You're just going to bring it out in front of you again. Shift the calf out of the way on the bent leg. Now again, if this is really, really unpleasant, you may want to turn your ankle this way, and if you can't get into any of this, then you're instead going to come here with the sole of the foot to the inside of the thigh. So if all this business over here is painful, so short, sharp, stabbing back pains, or it's just not accessible, then you take the other option. Try to bring the knees close together, stretching onto the top of the ankle, and then again, we're folding forward, so if you would like to use the extra props because honestly, most of us don't get very far down in this particular position. So really don't feel bad about anything ever. But fold forward. This is only a 3 minute, so we're working our way back. 2, 3, 4. And we're going back to 3. Fold forward. Oh, extend, relax the extended leg. Props are nice to have here for this first minute. Let me bring this where I can see it a little better. And see what you can soften, see what you can remove. And we're halfway. See if you can just soften the knee and the ankle. Take any adjustments you feel you have to, and then try to settle back in again, remembering to be conscious of that urge to fidget, because that's communicating something about your discomfort in the pose. It isn't necessarily an absolute need to move. So just checking in with that, whether it's a fidget or whether it's an adjustment. Or is that whole thing potato, potato? And last breath, gently walking it out. And then we're going straight to our deer pose on the other side. So bending into your left leg, taking your right leg out behind you. You may need the blankets underneath the ankle. Either one of those ankles if they are on the ground. Ooh, so this side's quite uncomfortable for me. Sitting on a prop if you need to even those hips out. It's a little better. Making sure everything's in line. Inhale, lengthen. Remembering one side is always a little more accessible than the other. So giving yourself the grace for that. Soften the shoulders away from the ears. Coming in as far as you can manage. Remember, not necessarily going in the whole way. Giving yourself some room to deepen the pose. Soften the chin into the chest. And breathe. This is a 2-minute hold. We're building again. Maybe you can deepen. Remember, we did say if you wanted to have a pillow or a prop underneath the forearms to help you, that is totally possible. And very gently walking it back. Coming off of your prop if you're on one, and then keeping the bottom leg, your right leg exactly where it is, leaning over to bring that left leg around to your stack. So remember, you've got the option to place something below this ankle if this is unpleasant. It's unpleasant, but if it's unbearable, and then making sure that the knee is over the your right knee is over your left ankle. The joy of hip openers, we're looking for the most possible discomfort. So you got the option of the thinker, and this is our 3-minute hold. So you've either got the option of the thinker or tremendously uncomfortable, or folding forward. Clearly this hip is a lot tighter than this hip. Which one is it for you? Inhale, exhale. Try to soften. Still being a little overly enthusiastic there. There's 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go, and when I was trying to get into the deepest pose humanly possible in a hip opener. Is that you? Are you doing that? Stop doing that. And then, if this is super easy for you, then you are coming into your twist, walking over to your left, taking your right elbow into the right sole of the foot. Take that little halfway lift. Inhale. Exhale. Bring the hands down to the ground. Draw the elbows towards each other like a chaturanga sort of a feeling. Like you want an external rotation in the top of the shoulder or in the shoulder joints, and you want to draw those elbows towards each other. Always spreading the fingers nice and wide no matter what you're doing. Inhale, exhale. Check in with the neck. Slide the chin across the chest from shoulder to shoulder. And then come back to some softness. Maybe you can go deeper. And last couple of breaths. If you were in the twist, just counter twisting loosely over to the other side. It's not even remotely a hold. It's just taking your left hand onto your right knee, pressing into the right hand. Keep the elbow tight into the body. Soften the chin across the chest and release. Take your hands out behind you. Ooh. Extend that leg. Oh, give it a point, maybe a flex. Come back up onto the sit bones. Shift your flesh. Draw your bent knee a little closer in towards the body. And then if you used props on the other side, use them on this side. You're going to fold over that extended leg. So placing your props on the leg. Inhale, lengthen, and exhale, fold. This is our long hold, our 4-minute hold in this little sequence. Woo. Grounding down into your left hip, right hip, no left hip, and fold. It's in this long hold where the fidget will become the most apparent. I'm doing it already. Does the zip really need that attention? I don't think so. And breathe. Coming back to the breath, coming back to the stillness, noticing where your thoughts have gone. Coming back to the idea that we started with. You're actively thinking, then you're actively breathing, then you're actively listening. And you being able to switch between them because you are powerful. Come to active listening. Is there something you can soften? Shift your awareness to actively breathing. We are into the last stretch. Actively breathing yourself into the depth of this pose, and not just the depth of the pose, but the depth of your very being. As you switch between active listening and active breathing, there is a deeper place to access. And it's not the thoughts that you think, because you are not the thoughts that you think. You are more. You are a human being, not a human doing. So actively listening to hear what the depths of your heart is communicating to you in this space of discomfort and surrender. Nearly there, last breath. Inhale. Exhale, sigh it out through the mouth as you gently walk yourself back. Whew. And from here, taking your left leg and coming onto the shin, sliding your hand down onto the top of the feet to bring your shin down to the ground. Again, I like to shift my calf out of the way here. You may not have quite the amount of calf that I have. I love you, calf. And then bringing your right leg forward. So remember, if this is not possible, you can come here. If this is possible, but you can't get your knees close together, then take them a little bit further apart, not the end of the world. If none of this is possible, then this is the other option. So choosing the one that is most appropriate for you. And then again, having your many, many props as we work back down to 3 minutes. And fold. So in this pose as well, the differences between your hips will be very obvious. Ow. And settle. Maybe you can take a proper way. And notice where your mind has actively gone. And then actively bring it back. Actively breathe. And actively listen. And last breath. Inhale. Exhale. Walk your hands back. Lean out onto your right hand. Draw the left leg out from behind you. Straighten the legs. Come onto the sit bones. Flex the feet. Inhale the arms up. Soften the shoulders out of the ears. Lift out of the waist, out of the hips. And fold forward. Keeping the legs active initially as if you were taking a more yang practice. And then let it all go. Relax the ankles. Relax the knees. Shimmy your belly onto the top of your thighs. Slide the hands forward. Come into the fullest caterpillar you can manage just before you want to burst into being a butterfly. And fold forward, allowing the head to be heavy. This is a counter pose. We're not going to be here too long. I'm not going to make you hold your caterpillar forever. Last breath, gently rolling up. Take your feet out to one side. Roll up onto all fours. Pressing the hands to the ground, making sure the heels are directly below your knees, or behind your knees and below your hips at least. And then taking a couple of really, really slow, really, really intentional cat and cow. I quite like to sort of knead the ground like this with my hands, like a cat might. Squeeze the buttocks and moving through and between these two asana, making the breath the framework of all the movement. And then from here, your little pile of books that you needed. So just making sure that they are more or less equal. And you're going to place your forearms, make sure your hips are above your knees, then come down onto the elbows. Drop your head between your elbows. Bring the hands to prayer. If this is already pretty uncomfortable, then just extend the arms out in front of you, maybe even facing the palms up. Let the belly drop down. It's not necessary to draw the belly to the spine. If this is comfortable, relatively manageable, maybe bring the hands to prayer and begin to draw your prayer towards the sky. Softening your chest towards the ground. Perhaps drawing the, what do you call these, thumbs, between the shoulder blades. Inhale, exhale. Notice that you're actively thinking. Then begin to actively breathe. Then begin to actively listen. And last breath. Very gently pull the hands out from behind the back. Extend them beyond the books for a moment, again just letting the palms roll up towards the ceiling. And then very gently dragging one hand, one arm forward. You may find your little pile of books starts to shift, that's okay. Reach your bottom down towards your heels. Coming into a full child's pose, so taking the hands next to the feet. There might be a little bit of space between the knees, that's okay. Adjusting your clothes if you need to, and then folding forward. Now this is where your books come in handy again. If the forehead feels like it's a billion miles away from the ground, then if you don't have a block, again, of using your books. This is actually really nice, giving the neck a little bit of space. I like to do this even though my forehead can reach the floor. Coming into this child's pose, letting the shoulders drop. Maybe you find, this is the other reason why I quite like to do this with books, is that sometimes a whole block is too high, but then taking the block away is too low. So if you have a couple of different size books, you can take a level down. And last breath. Bring the hands below the shoulders. Roll yourself up. Take your props out of the way. And shift your feet out to one side. Come onto your bum. Extend the legs out in front of you. Make sure that you got your props, the things you need for Shavasana, pillows, blankets and the like. And lean back, taking a couple of little windshield wipers with the knees. Kind of walking your bum down the mat. I love doing this. And then you'll notice you start to get a little bit of a stretch into the arms. Nice tricep stretch. Eventually finding yourself with your bum quite far down the mat and your arms in a lovely stretch. Coming out very carefully, lean onto one side and draw that hand out. Forearms, elbows, roll down onto your back. Maybe you want to have a pillow or a prop below the head again. That's a lovely idea. Bring the knees into the chest, give them a squeeze, perhaps even a little happy baby. And breathe. And then if there's a last lovely thing that you like to do before your Shavasana, maybe it's another twist, maybe it's a plow. Nothing too intense, nothing too fancy. We are cooling down. We're moving towards Shavasana, the most important part of the practice, in my opinion, never ever to be skipped. And then setting up for your Shavasana, extend the legs out in front of you, putting your blanket on if you need it. I like to take my Shavasana with a blanket even if it's very hot outside. Inhale, exhale, let the feet just flop out to the side, palms facing up. After a yin practice, one of the nice things to do is to take your pillows or a blanket and place them below your knees for Shavasana. That's a very nice thing to do before settling in. And bring your awareness to your breath. Squeeze the bum, make sure you're on the sit bone, on the sacrum. And breathe. Coming back to that full yogic breath, breathing from the navel to the neck and exhaling from the neck to the navel. Taking a long, slow inhale and an even longer, slower exhale. Allowing the weight of the body to just sink into the mat. And then coming back to that active mind. Noticing perhaps that there is a stilling, a quietening in the mind. Again, we're not comparing, but perhaps it is a little easier to feel grounded now than when you first lay down on your mat today. Coming back to that active mind. And then actively shifting your awareness, your control, your power from the active mind to the active breath. Inhaling and exhaling. I breathe in all that is, awareness expanding to take everything in, as if my heart beats the world into being. From the unnamed vastness between the mind, I breathe my way into wholeness and healing. Inhalation, exhalation. Each breath a yes and a letting go. A journey and a coming home. I breathe in all that is, awareness expanding to take everything in, as if my heart beats the world into being. From the unnamed vastness between and beneath the mind, I breathe my way into wholeness and healing. Inhalation, exhalation. Each breath a yes and a letting go, a journey and a coming home. Shifting your active awareness to active hearing. Actively listening. Beginning again with what your ears can hear, I breathe in all that is, awareness expanding to take everything in, as if my heart beats the world into being. From the unnamed vastness between the mind, I breathe my way into wholeness and healing. Inhalation, exhalation. Each breath a yes and a letting go. A journey and a coming home. Listening now with more than your ears. Bringing your awareness to the sound inside you. The sound of stillness in the mind. As you rest for these last few moments. Bring your awareness back to your breath and back to your body. Begin to think about moving the fingers and the toes, and in your mind's eye, imagining yourself touching your thumb to your fingertips just before you do. Bringing your awareness to the sounds again that you can hear in the distance or in the house or in the room. And then bringing your awareness back to your breath. On your next inhalation, extending the arms above the head and taking a good full body stretch. Point the toes, flex the feet, squeeze the bum, scrunch up the face. Bring the knees into the chest and give them a squeeze, and gently rolling over onto whichever side feels good for you, left or right. Taking a moment there. Reconnecting with that childlike sense of safety and security, and reminding yourself that you are unconditionally loved. With your next breath, using your top hand to push yourself up to a comfortable seated position, whatever that may be for you. Bring the hands into prayer at the heart center. Take a good deep breath in. And exhale, sigh it out. And we'll close off today with 3 rounds of Hour YIN. Hour YIN, the remover of obstacles. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Hour YIN. Hour YIN. Hour YIN. Hour YIN, Tat Sat. Namaste.